Hey everyone, this is Chris, and in this installment of Sci-Fi Review, we're going to be talking about George Clooney's latest movie, The Midnight Sky. Netflix's The Midnight Sky is the latest effort from George Clooney, who acts, produces, and directs this movie. Also stars Felicity Jones as the spaceship crew member Sully, and Caoilinn Springall as the young girl Iris, which we can do in just a second. Now, summarize this movie is pretty straightforward. Something happened on Earth. We really don't know. I don't think it's ever said. Something happens. Earth's atmosphere is totally f***ed. Apparently everybody's moving, evacuating to some underground shelters somewhere. I mean, that's just a plot point. Get it out of the way. Yeah, just accept it. Okay, move on. So Augustine, not George, Augustine stays behind at this research station. He is terminally ill, so I guess he's doing this, staying behind, because what's the point really? And he doesn't want to take up space on the evacuation or wherever it is they're going. I get it. So he's left behind to deal with his own problems, whatever. And this is where the book would have come in real handy to have read this first, because I'm betting there's inches of book that they just went nope, and just chucked it on the ground. So yeah, he's left there to deal with his own thoughts and emotions. Remember that. And soon after everybody leaves and he's left with himself, this young girl named Iris appears out of nowhere. Doesn't talk much, just kind of appears. He doesn't know who she belongs to, doesn't know why she's there. He realizes, hey, there's still people out there, missions going on, I guess, that he was involved with. There's some plot points here that are real confusing. It's like, how does he know this stuff? Where does this come from? He's at this research station that is apparently related to the space flight mission that's still out there, the Ether, which is piloted by 5 people, or not piloted, which is crewed by 5 different people, Felicity Jones being the most important one of them all, as Sullivan, aka Sully. He tries to make contact with him, doesn't make contact with him, realizes that he needs a bigger antenna, which conveniently there's a weather station with a monster deep space transmitter out there a few miles away. Again, plot point. Why does this weather station have a monster deep space satellite transmitter? It's a weather station. What? Anyway, so him and Iris set out across the frozen tundra towards this weather station. Things happen. We'll get to that in just a second. And he gets there. He finally makes contact with the Ether, with Sully. Tells them about Earth. Oh no, what are we going to do? They come up with a plan that they're going to slingshot around the Earth, go back to K23. I missed a point. K23 is a moon of Jupiter that has yet been undiscovered, and hey, guess what? It's habitable by humans. Plot point. Okay, I'll get to that in just a second. You have to bear with me on this, okay? Just trust me. As they're going around the Earth, getting ready to leave, the ending is, let's just say, well, I'll get to that too in a minute. So first of all, let's just get rid of all the bad stuff right now. Just get it out of the way. We'll end on a good note. So, science fiction, probably the number one point is suspension of disbelief. Now, there's some things that happen in this movie that we needed to know a little bit more about. Would have been a real good thing. Like what happened to planet Earth kind of doesn't matter because it's catastrophic. That's really all that matters. But just throw us a bone here, tell us what happened so we don't have to sit through the whole movie going, well, what happened? I don't get it. What happened? Okay, whatever, doesn't matter. So then he's left at this station. He's terminally ill. We don't really know what he has, which kind of would have made a difference. I don't know. Maybe it was said and I blinked and missed it. If I did, please let me know in the comments and I won't make a correction. You know what I mean. It's possible I blinked and missed it. I was watching, I promised. But then as they set out, him and this girl head off, across this frozen wasteland, him barely alive to begin with. They get into, there's one scene in particular, hope I'm not spoiling this. If I am, hey, spoilers. They find like an old Norwegian trailer lab or something and try staying the night. And then guess what? They're on top of a frozen lake, which suddenly in the middle of the night decides to give way and dumps them in the water. Now, I know that from my Boy Scout training and all that other good stuff, if you're soaking wet in the middle of the night above the Arctic Circle, you're probably not going to last more than 2 minutes. How he survives this? He just jumps out on the old snowmobile, takes off with the girl, and hey, it's all good, right? No pneumonia, no shock, no, oh my god, I'm gonna die in 2 minutes type of thing. He just carries on. I don't know. Yeah, it was kind of a what kind of moment. And come to find out, this scene in particular, I think, from what I read, was just thrown in there to interrupt the pacing of the movie. And it's like, well, sometimes just being in quiet desperation and reflecting on yourself can be a thing, guys. You don't have to break it up with action sequences all the time, especially if you're trying to do a semi-serious science fiction movie. So there's that. I mean, and then there's the issue of the ether, the spaceship itself. It's, I come from the school of spaceships are probably going to look like submarines. There's not going to be a lot of room for people and whatever. It's going to be fuel rations, oxygen, and maybe a few little holes for people to stay and sleep in, lab, control room, bridge, whatever. This place looks like a resort hotel, to be honest. It's, big wide open spaces and chrome and accent lighting, the nifty little holodeck, breakfast nook. It's like, well, okay, I guess we're in the future. I can kind of deal with some of that, but there's just, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm not really buying that, especially given that the Earth is, the whole desperate feel of this movie would have been a whole lot better if they were out there also feeling claustrophobic and desperate also, instead of them being all, woohoo, we're going home all the time. It would have been, I don't know, maybe just a little more tangible. I don't know what word for it, really. So then they get to Earth to do this thing, and two of the remaining crew members out of five, one of them, I'll get to this part in a second, one of them we'll talk about in just a second. Two of them decide to bail for Earth. One of them has family on the surface. One of them just wants to go back because of his kid. That leaves Sully and her partner. Oh, did I mention this part too? That Sully is now pregnant. So these two are bailing on the crew of now two people, one of which is pregnant, probably going to have this kid going halfway back to K-23 around Jupiter, and they're supposed to run this ship all by themselves, take care of a newborn baby. They're going to have limited supplies of oxygen and food because it wasn't made for a second trip back. There's suspension of disbelief, guys. We're sitting here going, wait, what? No, that makes no sense at all. So I was talking about that fifth crew member. There's a scene where they're all outside the ship, and predictably, it's pretty predictable, George. I'm sorry, but I was sitting there calling the shots before they happened. Oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Yep, sure enough, it all happened, and the crew member dies. Not everybody can get out alive. That's just how it works. I get it. But it was very predictable. It was very obvious. Let's just put it that way. The only thing I didn't like about this movie, at times, not all the time, but at times, was the soundtrack. There was times when it was, boom, in your face. Hey, I'm the soundtrack. You should be listening to me instead of watching the movie. And it was a very overbearing, heavy-handed soundtrack at those times. It was very somber, but it was frustratingly so. It was just boom, 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 boom. I was like, what is going on here? One note after the other. And it was so loud and over the top, in your face. It was like, oh, please stop doing that. Just a lot of stuff like that in this movie. But okay, let's wrap this up, get it on a good note here. So by and large, everybody in this movie does a great job. George Clooney especially, it's George Clooney. He's not going to screw up an acting job. I mean, come on. He's a pro. Felicity Jones, too. From what I understand, they had to rewrite this whole pregnancy plotline in because in real life she was actually pregnant. And, well, guess what? Can't hide that from the cameras, so we got to write it into the movie somehow. Caoilinn Springall, I would have liked to have seen more of. I mean, she has like one line, maybe two, in the whole movie. And once you know the ending, which we'll get to in a minute, that kind of makes sense, but it would have been nice to have a little bit of interaction there, just because. One thing I do want to say, though, is thank you, George Clooney, for actually making a really decent attempt at making some semi-serious science fiction films. This is a refreshing change of pace from everything being silly comic book style, Demon Slayer, Dracula, Marvel comic book, DC comic books, Star Wars, there's a certain mold that's been going on for a long time that everything is following, and it's nice to see an attempt made at some semi-serious science fiction going on. And thank you, George, for that. Try again, please. Try again, please. I mean, the ending is worthy of an M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's just an M. Night ending, and you go, oh, why didn't I see that? Because the whole time, all these things going on, you'll get there and you'll go, yeah, of course that's what happened. Of course, we should have seen it coming. I mean, in that ending, it's pretty emotional. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I see what happened there, and it's. I mean, if you don't feel something at the ending, you're a terrible person. Just so you know. Despite all the bad things, all the suspension of disbelief, there's a saying that goes around in science fiction that you got to think to yourself, it's just a show and I should really just relax. Yeah, that's what you got to do. You got to put that suspension of belief. You got to make a conscious effort to go, nope, this is science fiction. I got to just ignore that and just run with it. So that's what you got to do. Despite of that, I'm giving this a 3 out of 5 just because of the ending, because of the performances, the writing, the story got problems. Like I said, there's a lot of problems with it, but in the end, that ending, the M. Night ending, really bumped it back up to a 3 from where I was going with it. I don't know, but 3 out of 5. Midnight Sky, George Clooney, Felicity Jones, Caoilinn Springall. This has been Sci-Fi Review.